Let my people go, he said again. Staff to a serpent, river red like pain. Frogs in the ovens, dust turned to flies. Still Pharaoh's heart kept turning to ice.
430 years. That's how long the Israelites have been in Egypt. It's 17 generations. And people were born, they lived, and they died in slavery, knowing nothing else, right? This was their life. And the promise that God made to Abraham, it must have felt like some sort of fairy tale. And then in one night, it was all over. They packed what they could carry, their kneading bowls wrapped in cloths on their shoulders, unleavened dough because there wasn't time for it to rise. Silver and gold was pressed into their hands by the Egyptians who just wanted them gone. And they just simply walked out. So 600,000 men, plus the women, plus the children, plus a mixed multitude of non-Israelites who chose to go with them. Just out into the desert, into the unknown, with nothing but a promise and a pillar of cloud to guide them. Welcome to Come Listen With Me. I'm Ricky Black, aka Elder Eliezer, and today is day 6, our final day of reading for week 15 in our ongoing Come Follow Me study of the Old Testament. And today we're going to be reading Exodus chapter 12, verses 29 through 51, and then chapter 13, verses 17 through 22. It's going to be 29 verses, and some of yesterday's reading overlaps with today's at the beginning. And since yesterday we focused on the Passover instructions, well, today we're focused on the departure itself. Now, this is where the Exodus begins, and they begin to walk out in faith. This is also where the bondage just ends, right? So let's go ahead and dive on in. Now, before we begin, we do want to read with intention. So a couple of quick questions to keep in mind to focus our thoughts so we're not just reading passively as we go through this. First, what changes the moment Israel actually walks out of Egypt? It's an important question, right? So as we read, watch for the shift from slaves to covenant people on the move, right? What changes in their identity, their structure, their belonging, and their relationship to God once the deliverance finally becomes real? Also, think about what does this passage teach us about how God leads people after he delivers them? Right? As we read, you'll notice God's patterns. He doesn't just get them out. He leads them by a road they would not have chosen, right? A different route. And the pace may not have been their preferred one. So just kind of pay attention to that. And then the final question is, who comes out of Egypt with Israel, and why does that matter? It's very, very important when they're kind of listing that off. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. When we're going to be picking up here in chapter 12, starting in verses 29 and 30. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. All right. So at midnight, and this is the darkest hour, right? And from the throne room to the deepest dungeon, the firstborn of Pharaoh who had power over everything, the firstborn of the captive who had power over nothing, right? Death made no distinction among the Egyptians that night. So wealth didn't protect you, and poverty didn't exempt you. The only protection was the blood on the doorpost. Right there it said, there was not a house where there was not one dead. So take a minute. Think about that. Every house, every family, the scope of collective grief in the single night is absolutely staggering. Like a whole entire nation woke up in the morning, and this was the cost of one man's refusal to yield to God. Pharaoh's stubbornness, it didn't just affect Pharaoh, right? It devastated everyone under his authority. See, when leaders harden their hearts, their people are the ones who end up paying the price. Let's continue verses 31 and 32 here. Okay. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, Rise up and get ye forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. All right. So he's got no conditions. Remember, this is a man who is bargaining at every point, right? Trying to retain some sort of hostage or leverage over the Israelites, right? But now, no negotiation. No, I need you to stay close, leave the women, keep the livestock. Nope. Every restriction that the Pharaoh tried to impose across the 10 plagues is gone. It's just rise up, get out, and take everything, and just go serve your God. Pretty much somewhere else, not here. And the as ye have said, right? Three times, 2 verses. As ye have said, as ye have said, as ye have said. So Pharaoh is conceding that Moses was right all along. Every demand that Moses made from the very first audience, Pharaoh is granting all of them at once, in the dark, standing over his dead son that his pride had cost him. But he also asks, and bless me also. Bless me also. See, those 3 words might be the most human words that Pharaoh speaks in the entire book. I mean, after all his defiance and cruelty and broken promises, it's in his grief, with his pride and ego finally shattered, that he asks the people that he enslaved to bless him. And he's not commanding either, right? He's pleading, he's asking. So pride, it can hold for a very long time, but grief, it breaks everything open from the highest to the lowest of us. And I think there's mercy even in this moment, right? God didn't need Pharaoh's blessing request to free Israel. But maybe Pharaoh needed to ask for it. Like, maybe that request was the first genuine act of humility that Pharaoh had performed in his entire life. Okay, so let's continue verses 33 through 34 here. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, We be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. We be all dead men. Sounds like a line that you'd expect out of the Pirates of the Caribbean. But no, I mean, this is the Egyptians, right? They feared that if Israel stayed even a single more hour, that the killing would continue, wouldn't stop at their firstborns. And they weren't just allowing the departure, like they were desperate for it, right? And notice the detail there in verse 34. See, the Israelites, they just grabbed their dough before they even had time to rise. The kneading troughs were bound up in their cloaks on their shoulders. And this is the origin story of matzah, right? The unleavened bread that Jewish families eat at Passover to this day. So 3,000 years later, when a Jewish family breaks matzah at the Seder table, they're eating the bread of a people who left in a hurry, like so fast that their dough couldn't rise. So the food itself carries the memory of that urgency in that moment. All right, let's do verses 35 and 36 now. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord God gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. So as we discussed yesterday, right, the Hebrew word translated borrowed is shal. It means asked, right? They asked, the Egyptians gave, freely, urgently. Like the Lord gave Israel favor in their eyes. And that one line in there, right, and they spoiled the Egyptians. Well, this actually fulfills Genesis 15:14, right? The promise that God made to Abraham over 4 centuries earlier, where he said, after shall they come out with great substance. So 400 years between the promise and the payoff. So if you're in a season where God's promises feel impossibly delayed, don't worry, just hold on. He does keep his word. He kept it for Abraham, and he will keep it for you. It's just his timing may be different, but with good reason. Okay. So let's move on to the actual departure, right? And this is going to be verses, we're going to do 37 and 38 here. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men beside children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. 600,000 men on foot, besides the children. So conservative estimates, they put this total at like 1.5 million. More liberal estimates, they're going to push it past 2 million. Either way, this is one of the largest mass migrations in the ancient world. I mean, you're talking about a section of people in ancient Egypt that would be like surpass the populations of some of the greatest Western cities in the centuries to millennia to come. It's literally like a river of humanity just flowing out of Ramses towards Succoth, right? And a mixed multitude went up also with them. So these are non-Israelites, right? People who were not born into the covenant. And the Egyptians who saw what God did and what he said, and they are the ones who said, oh man, I'm going with them, right? Other enslaved people who saw their chance, they took it. People who didn't fully understand Israel's God, but knew he was real and they knew he was powerful, and decided that wherever these people were going, it was better than staying. I think they chose correct. Now, this mixed multitude, it is one of the more important details in the entire Exodus narrative, because it proves that the covenant has always been, from the very beginning, right? God was gathering people who chose him regardless of their birth, right? The gathering Israel has never been only about a bloodline. It's about individual choice and the choice to enter into covenant with God. Now, if you're watching this video and you've chosen to follow Christ and you've looked at what God has done and said, and you just said, I want to be a part of that, well, congratulations. You're part of the mixed multitude, right? You are walking out of Egypt with Israel. Welcome to the journey. It's a great place. All right, let's look at verse 39. And they baked unleavened cakes of dough, which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. No provisions, no time to prepare food. They baked flat cakes from dough they carried on their shoulders. And this was not a well-planned expedition, right? This was an emergency departure, and they ate whatever they had. And sometimes that just meant water into raw flour. And there's a lesson in that, right? Like sometimes God moves faster than our preparation allows, and sometimes deliverance arrives before you even feel ready. So whenever we talk about God's timing, I think people focus on like when it might be at a slower time or a later date, but also realize the opposite of that is true. Sometimes it's faster when you may not feel ready, right? You don't wait until everything is in order to leave Egypt. You leave when God says leave, and you trust him to feed you on that road. And spoiler, he will. Like, the manna is coming, but we're going to get to that next week. All right, let's continue verses 40 and 41. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of 430 years, even the selfsame day, it came to pass that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. 430 years, the selfsame day. So it's not approximately 400 years, but 430. And on the exact day God had appointed, they walked out. So the precision of God's timing is one of the most consistent themes in all of Scripture. He doesn't estimate or round. He fulfills his promises on the appointed day at the appointed time. Galatians 4:4, it kind of says the same thing about the atonement. When the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his son. Not early, not late, the selfsame day. So if you're waiting on a promise from God, it will arrive precisely on time. Not on your schedule, but on his. So don't worry, it's coming. All right, verse 42. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord, for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. This is the night of the Lord. a night to be much observed. Like, that phrase has been carried forward for over 3,000 years, nearly 4,000 years. The Passover Haggadah, right? The text read at every Jewish Seder. It says, in every generation, every person is obligated to see themselves as though they personally went out of Egypt. So not their ancestors and not the ancient Israelites, but them personally are to envision themselves as being that person. So the Passover, it's not just history, it's really about identity, your individual identity in association with the covenant. For those of us who follow Christ, the sacrament carries that same weight. We're not merely remembering something that happened to somebody else. We are participating in the deliverance, in our own deliverance, right? The bread is our bread. The covenant is our covenant. The lamb is our lamb. All right. So let's carry on now. And this is going to be about the law of Passover here. We're going to go to verses 43 through 46 now. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and a hired servant shall not eat thereof. In one house it shall be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. Now, again, we read these verses yesterday in the context of remembrance, but today I want to focus on two details we didn't fully unpack. First, in one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house. So the Passover is eaten in community inside the house under the blah, right? You do not take it outside. You don't eat it on the road. You eat it sheltered together with your family. And there is something about covenant worship that requires gathering. It requires a presence. It requires really just being in the room. Like, you can't experience the Passover remotely. And second thing to unpack here is, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. Now, we covered that John 19, 33 to 36, that whole fulfillment yesterday, right? That when the soldiers came to break Jesus' legs on the cross, that they had found him already dead and did not break them. But consider how remarkable this is. A dinner instruction given to slaves in Goshen encoded a prophecy about what would happen to the Messiah's body on the Roman cross 1,500 years later. Right? The Passover is prophetic down to the bones. Let's look at verses 47 through 49 now. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and let them come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and to the stranger that sojourneth among you. He shall be as one that is born in the land. So that's the open door, right? If a stranger wants to join, they enter the covenant and they are treated identically to a native-born Israelite. Like, there's no asterisk or footnote, none of this like, well, you're welcome, but you're not really one of us, right? They are as one born in the land. Full membership, full identity, full belonging to the covenant community. And it says, one law shall be to him that is homeborn and unto the stranger. So this is actually pretty radical in the ancient world, right? It's one law for everyone in the covenant. It's the same obligation, the same protections, and the same access to God. And, well, in our day, right, it's one baptism, right? And a covenant making it, well, it really serves the same function as the circumcision served then, right? If you choose the covenant, you are Israel. You are home. By baptism, not circumcision, you're brought forth into the community. Okay. I'm going to continue verses 50 and 51 now. Thus did all the children of Israel, as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. So as the Lord commanded, so did they. That phrase, it's kind of the heartbeat of Exodus. It's obedience, right? It's not a perfect understanding or a complete comprehension of every symbol. It's just obedience. And they did what God said, and God did what God promised that same day. I think there's a good lesson in that. I know for myself, every time I read through the scriptures, I pull out so much more comprehension every single time. And if I had waited to enter into those baptismal waters, I'd still be waiting because I'd realize that, I don't understand everything perfectly yet. There's still more to learn. We just move in faith, and over time, new things will be revealed to us. So if you're someone who's waiting for that perfect understanding, don't. Just accept, that true witness of the Spirit, right? Telling you the truth of God and his love and the redeeming qualities of Christ. The rest is going to be revealed, line upon line, precept upon precept over time, and it's a beautiful thing. So just move forward in faith. Then it says by their armies, right? So Israel doesn't have a mob of refugees. They leave as armies, right? That means they're organized, they're marshaled, and they're structured. So God is already beginning to reshape them from a collection of slaves in a nation, right? Where there's this transformation that begins the moment they walk out the door. So they're a different group entirely. All right. Let's go ahead now, and we're going to transition over to chapter 13 now. And we're going to begin here in verse 17. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. So, the shortest route to Canaan was along the Mediterranean coast through the Philistine territory, right? The way of Horus. And it's a well-traveled military and trade route at this time, right? They could have been in the promised land in weeks, maybe days if they really pushed it. And it would have been an easy travel too. But God, he chose a much, much longer way. And not because he wanted them to suffer. Absolutely not. And he wasn't punishing them either. No. It's because he knew that they weren't ready, right? They had just walked out of 400 years of slavery. Their faith was really brand new to them, right? Their trust was still fragile. And if they hit that fortified Philistine garrison along the coast, they probably would have panicked, and they would have just ended up turning around, and they would have gone right back to Egypt. So God, sometimes he leads us on a much longer path, right? Not as punishment, but as a way to help us sort of become more prepared to receive the blessings he has in store for us. So the wilderness wasn't a detour, right? It was, in a way, it was the curriculum for how they would learn and grow. And they needed to learn to trust him through the manna, through the water from the rock, through the other battles they would come to, right? And before they could fight for what he promised them, they needed to go through all that. All right. And so how many of us have looked at our lives and thought, why is this taking so long? Why can't I just arrive? We want one of those promises that, God's granting, faster than we seem to be able to handle. Right. But no, it's not always fast. Sometimes it does take a while. We're still just sitting there and say, why can't I skip the wilderness and get straight to Canaan? Maybe, just maybe, God is preparing you for a confrontation that you can't see yet. And if he took you straight there right now, you'd probably panic and turn back. So the longer road is the road that makes you strong enough to stay. All right, let's continue on here in verse 18. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up, harnessed out of the land of Egypt. There we go, through the wilderness of the Red Sea. That's where they're headed. And next week, in week 16, we'll stand on the shore of the Red Sea and watch it part. But today, the destination is just the direction. So they don't know what's coming. They're walking in faith. They're walking towards one of the greatest miracles in the Old Testament, and they don't know it yet. So it's kind of important to know that miracles and blessings are coming, but you just don't know it yet. And that word harnessed, it can also be translated as armed or in orderly ranks. So even in the wilderness, God is bringing order and structure. He's organizing them for what is ahead. Okay, verses 19 and 20. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. And they took their journey from Succoth and encamped in Etham in the edge of the wilderness. So this detail, it reaches all the way back to the end of Genesis, right? When Joseph was dying in Egypt, he made his brothers swear an oath. When God visits you and brings you out of this land, carry my bones with you. That was Genesis 50, verse 25. That was over 430 years ago. And, well, Moses, good on him. He remembers, right? Joseph's bones are a physical testament to faith in a promise not yet fulfilled. Joseph died believing God would deliver Israel from Egypt. And even though he would never see it, he was willing to wait in a coffin for 4 centuries because he trusted that promise. And now, finally, his bones are walking out of Egypt on the shoulders of the generations that finally saw that fulfillment. And Hebrews 11:22, it says, by faith, Joseph, when he died, made mention of the departing of the children of Israel and gave commandment concerning his bones. So faith that reaches beyond your own lifetime, that's really what it's about, right? It's a faith that trusts God for generations that you will never meet. And that was Joseph. And that's the kind of faith that Exodus actually demands of all of us. Let's continue in verses 21 and 22. And the Lord went out before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. All right. So he went before them, not behind them, pushing them, right? Not beside them or observing them. He was always leading from before them, like out in front, going first into the wilderness that they'd never crossed before, right? God didn't send Israel into the unknown to wait to see what would happen. He walked into the unknown ahead of them and just said, come follow me. So by day, a pillar of cloud. Now, in the desert heat of the Sinai, a cloud provides shade, coolness, and shelter from sun, which is very, very nice. And by night, a pillar of fire. See, deserts, they actually get very, very cold at night. So in the cold desert darkness, fire provides warmth, light, safety. So whatever they needed, wherever they needed it, the pillar adjusted to bless them and give them what was needed. So God's presence, it wasn't static. It responded to the conditions of the journey. It'll respond to the conditions of your journey too. And he took not away the pillar or the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So yeah, he never removed it, not once. Not when they complained, not when they doubted, not when they would build a golden calf. Yeah, the pillar stayed even then. God's presence was constant, visible, and undeniable, even when they absolutely didn't deserve it. Or appreciate it, right? And that is the promise for every person who walks out of their own Egypt. You will not walk alone. God, the one who delivered you, will also lead you. And he will shade you when the day is brutal. He will illuminate your path when the night is dark. He will cool you in the heat. He will warm you in the cool of night, right? He will not remove his presence from you. And Nephi, he saw this too. First Nephi 4:2 says, let us be strong like unto Moses, for he truly spake unto the waters of the Red Sea, and they divided hither and thither. And our fathers came through out of captivity on dry land. So the Exodus became a template by which all of Israel, and by extension all covenant people, that they understood what it really truly means to be saved, to be delivered, led, and accompanied by the Lord. And this is where week 15 ends, with the nation on the move, right? They're following a God that they can see. And that's all week 15. So we started on Monday with a staff becoming a serpent and the Nile turning to blood, like God introducing himself to Egypt. I am the Lord. And Tuesday, the plagues escalated. We had frogs, lice, flies, livestock, and the magicians confessed that the finger of God was present, while Pharaoh continued to harden his heart again and again and again. Wednesday, it got apocalyptic, like boils, hail mixed with fire, locusts, and 3 days of darkness that extinguished the sun god Ra himself. And Thursday, we stood in a doorway at midnight with blood on the post and the lamb on the table. We walked through the Passover symbol by symbol and saw Christ in every detail. And yesterday, we learned to remember. And the Passover became a perpetual ordinance, right? The firstborn were consecrated, and we traced the unbroken line from the Passover table to the Last Supper to our modern day sacrament. And today, we walked out of Egypt, 600,000 strong, plus a mixed multitude of women, children, and non-Israelites, all following a pillar of cloud and fire into the wilderness. From bondage to deliverance, from Egypt to wilderness, from the Passover table to the sacrament tray, from Pharaoh's cry to a pillar of fire. And that's the arc of Exodus 7 through 13. And it's your arc too, if you let it be. So here's my final question for the week in the comments. What Egypt are you walking out of right now? Like, what does the pillar or cloud of fire look like in your life? Now, you don't have to share the details, but share the principle, because I guarantee you somebody else in this community is standing at that same doorway that you are, and they need to hear that somebody else, they walked through it in faith, and it turned out okay. And if you haven't listened to this week's song, please do that too. So remember this day, right? It's in the description. And just let the last line sink in. From Egypt's shadow to liberty. All right. So next week is going to be week 16. We're going to be reading Exodus chapters 14 through 18. And when the Red Sea parts, the manna falls from heaven, and water pours from a rock. Israel fights its first battle. And Moses' arms, they're going to be held up by Aaron and Hur on a mountain. Man, there's a really important word with how they support that. I can't wait to talk about it. So if you thought this week was dramatic, we're just getting started. There's so much more. Anyway, I'll be back here tomorrow with the Sunday preview and to go over next week's reading schedule. And I'll also be dropping a new song for this week's study. This one's going to be called Stand Still on the Midnight Sea, and I hope you like it. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you for walking through this entire week with me. It's been one of the richest, most rewarding weeks of study we've done together so far. Got a lot of year ahead of us. And as always, I appreciate you all, I love you all, and thank you for choosing to spend some of your precious time to come listen with me.
Hearts like flame, with an outstretched arm, he called our name. Remember this day, teach every child. Love passed over and let us out. If the night grows heavy and the road feels long, paint the door red and sing this song. He remembers his covenant